these, and I hope that you all have found value in it. We at the Chamber are still continuing to try to connect all of our members and non-members to information, businesses, and each other. And I hope that these webinars continue to help with that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica, who has a great and important presentation about housing during COVID-19 today. So Jessica, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jessica Padilla-Gonzalez, and I'm very excited to be here with you all. I am the Executive Director of the Housing Partnership, and today I'll be presenting on housing during COVID-19. So just briefly, I just wanted to provide an overview of what the objective is. I just wanted to provide some information on who the Housing Partnership is, and most importantly, overview of the CARES Act with regards to homeowners, landlords, and tenants' rights. And also, what are some tips that people can do just as they're facing these hardships during these times. So the Housing Partnership is a HUD-approved NeighborWorks homeownership center. The key services that we offer are homebuyer education and financial coaching to all working households living in Northeast New Jersey. We are now providing rental counseling services, foreclosure services. Those are free and offered again to any household who's currently facing hardships with their homes. And we also administer the sale of over 590 affordable units located throughout Morris County. All this information can be found on our newly updated website, which I'll share at the end. So the CARES Act. The CARES Act was enacted on March 27th, 2020, and it signed a $2.2 trillion relief act to help people. The CARES Act also granted forbearance rights and protections against foreclosures to residents with federally backed loans. So federally backed loans is kind of the key words in that aspect. If somebody has a federally backed loan, it means that the loan is either a Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, FHA, USDA, or any loan that is currently backed by the federal government. What happens is if somebody is currently facing a hardship, meaning related to COVID-19, and they're unable to pay their mortgage, they have rights and protections. The first option is they're able to suspend payments for up to 180 days. The key thing that people need to understand and remember is if they have taxes and insurance that they pay on their own, they must continue to make those payments. All right, they need to make payment arrangements with their town and their insurance and contact them immediately. If somebody has a federally backed loan, again, meaning a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, USDA loan, after the 180-day repayment, after the 180 days is up, there are some repayment plans, right? So the bank does not forgive the payments. They just have to be able to offer them means to pay back the missed payments. One of the options is a payment in full, usually on the last day of the 180 days. This obviously is a hardship for anybody. If you couldn't make the payments initially, I find it very difficult that you would all of a sudden come up with the 180 days of payments all at once. So the banks have now started offering repayment plans. Some of these repayment plans mean that a homeowner can spread out the missed payments over the course of 6 months or 12 months, or there's a newly added option which it can be added towards the end of the loan, meaning at the end of the 30-year payment. Deferral is also a brand new one that just came out, I think maybe last week on Thursday. And again, this option puts the payments, the missed payments at the end of the loan. So they're due at the end of the 30 years. Or if somebody cashes out or refinances, those missed payments are going to go into the balance due. At the end of the presentation, I do have some tips and websites for people to visit where they can determine what kind of loan or find out and look up what type of loan they currently have on their property. So those resources will be towards the end. Now, let's say somebody has a non-federally backed loan. Some of these lenders are offering options and they're limited types of forbearance or payment suspensions. I'll be using those two words interchangeably. Again, the key aspect here is if you're paying your taxes and insurance on your own, you must continue to do that. But if your lender is paying that for you, they will continue to make those payments during the deferment period. So forbearance repayments options are typically tied to the amount being repaid. So again, if you have a non-federally backed mortgage, what's going to happen at the end of the suspension period is the lender may require you to make the payments in full. So on the 4th month or the 6th month, they may ask you to pay back the entire period of payments that were missed plus the current month. And again, people understand that this is a hardship. So what's happening is some of the lenders are adding the payments again into existing payments over the course of 6 months, or they're adding it to the end of the mortgage. One of the important things that people need to remember before they sign anything is to make sure that they're reading what the forbearances include and making sure that they are not giving up any of their rights. So we've heard of clients that sign forbearances, but the fine print also has language that states you are also giving up your rights for any further loan modifications down the road. So before anybody signs or accepts any kind of forbearance, please, please, please read the fine print, because you want to make sure you're not giving up any other rights down the line. So let's say somebody does receive a forbearance or a suspension payment option and they cannot make the payments. Let's say I can't make the lump sum at the end of my 6 months. There's no way I can afford those additional payments added to my 6 months. Some clients may be eligible for loan modifications at the end of the period. What we're asking everybody to do is just to make sure that they're gathering all their documents as of now, you know, their income taxes, their pay stubs, their furlough letters, anything. So if we do have to end up applying for a modification, we have all the documentation up front. Unfortunately, some lenders may not be willing to do modifications. So our organization would work with somebody to look into loan modifications. Always our goal is to keep people in their homes, but sometimes people have to sell. So we have to look at short sales, deed in lieu and foreclosure or foreclosure. We are hopeful that during this time, we will be able to assist the majority of our clients and anybody out there with the loan modification, considering the current conditions that we're living through. So as of, I think, March 22nd, we as an organization started doing rental counseling. And what we're seeing lately is a lot of landlords contacting us with questions. So if you are a landlord and you own a property that has a federally backed loan, meaning a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, USDA loan, you are eligible for a modification. It's important to understand that you are also eligible to take advantage of a loan forbearance plan or payment suspension. The key aspects of that is that you have to have had your mortgage payments on time as of February 1st, 2020, in order to take advantage of any type of forbearance. The forbearance period is usually for up to 30 days initially, or 90 days. And then you can request an additional 2 more 30-day periods of suspension. So if you are a multifamily borrower or a landlord that receives a CARE Act forbearance, there are some key things you have to remember. Number one is if you are granted a forbearance on your loan, you cannot evict or initiate the eviction of a tenant solely for non-payment of the rent. You cannot charge any late fees, penalties, or other charges to the tenant if you are currently under a forbearance plan. Essentially, this is done to alleviate some of the stresses that a landlord may have with their payments, to also alleviate the renter. Okay, you cannot evict the person you also cannot evict them after the 90-day period is up. All right, you have to make some kind of repayment plan with your tenants. So do we have any questions at this point in the queue, or should we continue with the presentation?
Nothing yet, but check back later and I will let you know.
Excellent. So the key thing to remember is, number one, you definitely want to make sure what type of mortgage you have, because you may have some rights to help protect you. And also as a landlord, you may have some options, all right? Because we understand the hardships that people are going through. And as a landlord myself, I also know that there are additional expenses that we need to cover during this time. So you want to be as proactive as possible in exploring what type of mortgage you have, and contacting your mortgage company as soon as you identify the possibility of falling behind. So as a tenant, so tenants do have a lot of protections during this time. The number one thing is no one may be evicted during this COVID crisis. However, rent is due. And after the crisis or the emergency is lifted, you may be facing eviction. So that's very important for people to understand, that just because there is a eviction moratorium does not mean that you do not have to pay rent. So if you have the ability to pay rent and you have not been directly impacted by COVID-19, you are expected to make your rent payments. All right, that's very important that people understand this. After the crisis has been resolved, or we go back to whatever the new normal is, if your landlord did provide you with some kind of forbearance, they are going to require you to make the payments on that lease. Again, some landlords are allowing a tenant to pay up to 30% of whatever their income is, right? We've negotiated some of those options with landlords and big management companies. This way the landlords get some money, and then the tenants aren't so far behind once things go back to normal and they're able to make the payments. Again, we're advising every renter, as soon as you think that you are going to fall behind, please let your landlords know, so that they can, again, start looking into resources that may be available to them, and so that they could take advantage of any forbearances that they may be able to have. There's also this new thing with the Executive Order 128. So we've gotten a ton of phone calls of that. So what the Executive Order 128 is that a renter can exercise their right to have their landlord utilize their security deposit to pay for backed rent. So this is a really good option for someone to take advantage of, especially of a landlord that may have other expenses or a mortgage to pay. The key aspect of this is it does not need to be repaid back unless the renter is going to stay there for an additional 6 months or at the time that they sign a renewed lease. So the security deposit does need to be replenished at some point in time. The most important thing that we're stressing with everybody that we communicate with is everything should be in writing, right? You want to have it clearly stated what's happening, what my options are, how my payments are being credited towards my future arrearage. And again, communication, because everybody is currently going through this situation. So as I mentioned before, no one may be removed from their home for inability to pay during COVID-19. I think I stressed this again in the beginning. When people heard eviction moratorium, they immediately assumed that the rent was not due and that they would not be getting evicted. You can still get evicted once the courts open up. I'm pretty sure there will be some landlords that will go in and start filing these evictions. So the key, again, is to communicate with your landlord. Let them know, listen, I'm having a hard time. How can we negotiate a repayment plan? Because you don't want to be evicted at this point in time. We're also seeing lately in the last, I'm gonna say last week, we've had a lot of tenants contact us that landlords are all of a sudden selling the property. So we don't know if this is as a way, again, to try to force the tenant to move out or vacate the property and put somebody new in. But if you're a landlord out there, I think the most important thing is really communicate with your tenants, find out what's going on, and try to make some kind of happy medium at this point in time. Because selling a home, again, creates a hardship, as the tenants may not feel comfortable having a real estate agent or strangers come into their home. So really be considerate of everybody's situation. So the CARES Act also included a short-term stay on foreclosure proceedings. And essentially it's the same thing as the eviction. It doesn't mean that foreclosures cannot happen. It just means that there is a pause on the actual foreclosures. So there are no filings taking place at this point in time. And the key with this, as I mentioned with the tenants, is you have to communicate to your mortgage company that you are afraid of falling behind or that you will fall behind because they may have some options to keep you in your home and are planning ahead. I guess the key words that I'm trying to stress during the presentation is be proactive, not reactive. I know it's a scary time for people, but it's really important for you to communicate with everybody because if you don't tell somebody that you don't have the ability to pay, they don't know. So during that time, it just basically means that there cannot be any foreclosure filings and except if the property is vacant or abandoned. Do we have any questions?
Not yet.
Beautiful. So very briefly, I guess my next steps is if you know someone who's experienced a hardship due to COVID-19, the first thing that they should do is look up the type of loan that they have. I will provide a link at the end of the presentation with how to do that. The most important thing, again, is communication. We need to talk to each other. We need to know what's going on. So they might want to contact their servicer to express their hardship and then explore forbearance options with the servicers. Some banks have made it very easy when you go online to try to make your payments. They have a radio button that you click and you can select cannot make my payment at this time due to a COVID-related hardship. And then the lender may call you back to confirm and then talk to you about your options. Please note that some of the people that are calling you back are just reading off a script. So it's really important that you as a homeowner do your homework, right? Understand what's being told to you. Ask the key questions. Am I giving up any rights in the future for a loan modification? When are my payments due? What are my options going to be after my forbearance period expires? And it's, again, important to ask the right questions. If you're not comfortable doing this on your own, as I mentioned, the Housing Partnership is a HUD-approved counseling agency, and we offer free foreclosure counseling or modification to households of all incomes. Anybody can contact the Housing Partnership. Our services are free. It doesn't matter if you make $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year. Our counselors are here to assist you in understanding this process and making sure that you are taking advantage of the correct options that are available for you. So if you're a renter experiencing a hardship, again, I may sound like a broken record, but communication is key. So you want to contact your landlord as soon as possible. I know some tenants have told us our landlords don't want to hear it, but the key is for you to document it in writing that you've expressed to them that you are facing a hardship. We've also told a lot of renters, why don't you have your landlord contact us so that we can work with them to figure out if they might be eligible for modifications? Because some landlords do not know that their multifamily apartments are eligible if they are financed through the federally backed loan. If you're a renter and or a landlord, again, you could contact a HUD-approved counseling agency like the Housing Partnership, and we'll be more than happy to help you explore the options that are available to you. So I do have a Q&A question. If we don't have any questions, I think the most important thing is our website. Our website has the ability to, if you're a renter, if you are a landlord, all of our forms are available online. Typically, once you submit an intake form, you can get a phone call back within 24 to 48 hours, and someone can talk to you to kind of go over what's going on, and we can explore some options. My final slide is going to be about the resources that are out there. So key lookup tools. So Fannie Mae has a lookup tool. Freddie Mac has a lookup tool. But the bottom one, the multifamily lookup tool, has a great option for anybody that may be living in a big apartment complex. You could find out if the mortgage on that property is backed by any federally backed loans. If you follow that last page down here, that multifamily lookup tool, that one also takes you to additional pages. So let's say your initial lookup says this property is not eligible. It'll say click here to check the next screen. The other thing that this last one does is, let's say you're a renter who lives in a single family property. You can also look it up and determine whether or not your landlord has a Fannie or Freddie. The most important thing to remember, again, I don't think I could stress it enough, is communicate, because maybe your landlord is asking for payments because they're not aware that they may be eligible, or they don't understand what's going on. And I think it's important at this point in time for us to communicate as much as possible and share. One final thing that I've added on here, which I thought was very important and some people don't understand, is that under the section 4021 of the CARES Act, it says that if anybody has been affected by COVID-19, it cannot affect their credit, all right? Because I was on a phone call a few weeks ago where misinformation was being shared, but if you do get a modification or if you're not able to make your mortgage payment due to COVID-19, it will not negatively impact your score. And that is a protection that's offered to you under the section 4021 of the CARES Act. So those are really important things not to be afraid. But if you can make the payments, of course, make the payments. But if you cannot, it's important for you to communicate with all of your credit card companies, car payment companies, student loan companies as well. So I know that some of the federally backed student loans have automatically stopped payments or reduced the interest rate to 0. But this is not a time to kind of freeze in your fear. It's really a time to be proactive and make sure you're taking the steps to protect yourself today so it doesn't have a negative impact on you tomorrow. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Jessica, for this excellent information. I didn't know that end part about the credit score, so that's really good to know. I really think that the moral of the story here is that we need to work together through this, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for this fantastic information. I really hope it helps people that need it. It's going to be on our Facebook page. We will be posting this to our YouTube channel and our website's video gallery once it's edited. And thank you again. Thank you so much for this information. I think it's fantastic to put out there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any,
no, continue.
I'm sorry. No, I cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just going to say Housing Partnership does excellent work for our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, our website is available. Our staff is working remotely. Our phone number, we're always here to help. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. I'll drop that website link in the comments on the Facebook stream. So thank you so much again. And everyone have a great day. And I'll see you on the next webinar. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.